Finnegans Wake by Joyce. Book 1, Chapter 6, Section 157. And they vitiberated each other, canis et coluber, with the wildest ever wielded, since Tarius Tinus lashed, pisas faltium, unachon, ungulant, uveloid, Usibeak, and Bullfolly answered volleyball. Nuvoletta, in her light dress, spun of sistine shimmers, was looking down on them, leaning over the banisters, and listening all she childishly could. How she was frightened when Shudderups in his glaubering hockskid, his Welkenstock, and how she was overclused when Kneesnobs on his wivel was make acting such a pause of him's help. She was alone. All her Nubid companions were a-sleeping with the squirrels. Their miver, Mrs. Moonan, was off in the first quarter scrubbing the back steps of number 28. Fover, that scanned, he was up in Norwood's Socapoller, eating oceans of Voking's blemish. Nuvoletta listened as she reflected herself. Though the heavenly one with his concelatria and his emanations stood between, and she tried all she tried to make the Mookse look up at her, but he was too adiaptotously far-seeing, and to make the gripes hear how coy she could be, though he was much too systematically auricular about his ends to heed her. But it was all Mild's vapour moist. Not even her faint reflection, Nuvolucia, could they toke their noses off, for their minds, with intrepified fate and bungless curiosity, were conclaved with Heliogoblius, and Commodus, and Enobarbarus, and whatever the cardinal Dickens they did as their damprock of papers and bookstubs said, as if that was their spiration, as if theirs could do operate her queendom, as if she would be third party to such proceedings. She tried all the winsome ways her four winds had taught her. She tossed her sfuma stellius in his hair like la princesse de la petite Bretagne, and she rounded her mignon arms like Mrs. Cornwallis West, and she smiled over herself like the beauty of the image of the pose of the daughter of the Queen of the Emperor of Ireland, and she sighed after herself, as were she born to bride with Tristis, Tristior, Tristissimus, but sweet Madanine, she might fair as well have carried her daisies worth to Florida, for the Mookse, a dog-mad aconite, were not amused, and the gripes, a doubly blouse Catholic, was painfully obliviant. I see, she sighed. There are manner. The sis of the wisp of the sigh, of the soft zing, at the stir of their gross, arundo, of a long one in medias ritz, and shades began to glitter along the banks, greepsing, dusk unto dusk, and it was as gloaming could be in the waste of all peaceable worlds. Metamnesia was all sunome, coloriform brune. Cytherea, Spiane, and Uland, inner moras and numeros. The Mookse had a sound eyes right, but he could not all hear. The gripes had light ears left, yet he could but ill see. He ceased, and he ceased tongue and trit, and was never so ever so dusk of both of them. But still, Moo thought on the deeps of the onts, he would profoundeth come the morosk, and still gree, field of the scripes, he would escape by the grace he had luck in oops. Oh, how it was dusk. From Valley Maria to Grassi Planaya, dormimust echo, do. It was so dusk that the tears of night began to fall, first by ones and twos, then by threes and fours, at last by fives and sixes of sevens, for the tired ones were wecking, as we weep now with them. Oh, parla pliu. Then there came down to the thither bank a woman of no appearance. I believe she was a black with chills at her feet, and she gathered up his hoariness, the Mookse, metamorphally, where he was spread, and carried him away to her invisible dwelling. That heights Aquila Rapix, for he was the holy sacred solemn, and Poshop spit of her Boshop's apron. So, you see, the Mookse, he had reason, as I knew and you knew, and he knew all along. And there came down to the hither bank a woman, to all important, though they say she was comely, spite the cold in her heed, and for he was as like it, as blow it, to a hawker's hank. She plucked down the gripes, torn panicky autotone in agnew from his limb, and carried away its beotitubes with her to her unseen shieling. It is Derora Koolaid. And so the poor gripes got wrong, for that is always how a gripes is, always was, and always will be, and it was never so thoughtful of either of them. And there were left now an only elm tree, and but a stone, poled with Pietrus Siere, but Saule, oh, yes, and Nuvoletta, alas. Then Nuvoletta reflected for the last time in her little long life, and she made up all her myriads of drifting minds in one. She cancelled all her engulfments. She climbed over the banisters. She gave a childy, cloudy cry, nui, nui. A light dress fluttered. She was gone, and into the river that had been a stream, for 1,000 of tears had gone on her and come on her, and she was stout and struck on dancing, and her muddied name was Mrs. Aliffy. There fell a tear, a singult tear, the loveliest of all tears. I mean, for those cry-love fable fans who are keen on the pretty common-face sort of thing you meet by Hope Harrods, for it was a leap tear. But the river tripped on her by and by, lapping as though her heart was broke. Why, way, oh, way, I's so silly to be flowing, but I no canna stay. No applause, please, bast. The Romscott Nattle Shaker will go round your circulation in due dursus. Alla boy, Major, I'll take your reactions in another place after themes. Nolan Brown, you may now leave the classroom. Joe, Peters, Fox. As I have now successfully explained to you my own natural-born rations, which are even in excise of my volty brain, ensure me that I am a mouth's more deserving case by genius. I feel in sympathos for my ever-devoted friend and half-a-loaf unwashed Nakas Njokovic. Darling Jem, darling small fox. Horoz Shaul. I could love that man like my own Ambo for being so baily clever, though he's a no fucure lass. And I must laugh to methodiciousness. I want him to go and live like a Theobald in charge of the Night Brigade on Tristan da Cunha, Isle of Man overboard, where he'll make number 106 and be near inaccessible. The meeting of mahoganies be the waves romentious me, that these exposed side, though it pines for an umbrella of its own, and needs a shelter belt of the true service sort, to keep its bowls clean, the weeping beaches, Pesia and Telia, are in a wild state about it, ought to be classified as crickle but willexum, and his two nurseryman advisors suggested under genus inexhaustible, when we refloat upon all the butternut, sweet gum and manna ash, red cedara, which is so purulent there as if there was hawthorns in Korakshasa, which ought to look as plain as a lodgepole to anybody, until we are introduced to that pine Dakota of Verni rubeus, where the Diodarte is pictured for us in a pure stand, which we do not doubt has a habitat of doing, but without those cell-phone seedlings, which are a species of proof that the largest individual can occur at or in an Olivition, such as East Connahillock, where it mixes with Fulth, acacians, and common sallies, and is tender. Vox populus, as we say in Hickory Hockory, and I wish we had some more glasses of arbor vitae. Why rote by the roadside, or on over allumpot? Alderman White Beaver is Daco. He ought to go away for a change of ideas, and he'd have a world of things to look back on. Do, sweet Daniel. If I weren't a Jones in myself, I'd elect myself to be his dolphin in the wilds below, because he is such a barefooted rubber with my super socks pulled over his face, which I publicked in my best back garden for the laetification of the side rhodomites and to the irony of the stars. You will say it is most un-English, and I shall hope to hear that you will not go wrong about it, but I further feeling a bit husky in my truths. Will you please come over, and let us more murgalessly to each other's down below our vices? I am underheard by old Bilfaust. Wilsh is full of crooks. The cool skittle is Philip Deblinite. Mr. Whist is there over behind the want not. Wilsh and Whist are as thick of thins other as Faust on the Deblinite. Scuno sciuto estas priter la tapizzo malgranda, lele legas al si el sia chambro. Quelque forge funtas, quelque forge strumpas schultros. Hudien kill vi fartas mia nigra sigiorum. And from the point of fun, where I am trying to arrive at, they are on all four, as foible-minded as you can feel they are fable-bodied. My heeders will recoil with a great leisure how at outbreak, before trespassing on the space question where even Michelangelines have fooled to dread, I prove to myself as to your satisfaction how his abject all through the quick quid of Professor Ciondolone's too frequently hypothecated Beltermensch is nothing so much more than a mere cash-time, however genteel he may want ours, if we please. And I am speaking to us in the second person, for to this graded intellectual's dime is cash, and the cash system. You must not be allowed to forget that this is all contained, I mean the system, in the dog marks of origin on spurios, means that I cannot now have or not have a piece of chips in your pocket at the same time and with the same manners as you can now not have or have the cheek apiece. I've in mind, unless Burrus and Caesius have not or not have simultaneously systentangled themselves, sell dear to sold there, once in the dairy days of by and by. Burrus, let us like to imagine, is a genuine prime, the real choice, full of natural grease, the mildest of milk stuffs, yet unbeaten as a ricicide, and of course obsoletely unadulterous, whereat Caesius is obversely the revise of him, and in fact not an ideal choose by any meals, though the better man of the two is meltingly addicted to the more casual side of the Aravalist case, and, let me say it at once, as zealous over him as is passably he. The same home and history seeks and hidepence which we used to be reading for our pre-purgatory hot shot, till Duddy shut the shop up, and poor Mooty, I brought us poor Soupy. Who, how, in Acetius and Ulysses and Celius, Volatilis and Petrus Papricus. Our old party quite united around the slat-bowled commons. Father Salamus himself, and that sprug of a persil, and his sprig of thyme, and a dozen of the Murphy buds, and a score and more of the hot young caprels, and Lutetia in her green sleeves, and you two, and me three, twinsome bibs but handsome eights, like Spakespill and Aches. But there's many a split pretext bowl and jowl, and snob screwing that cork shot. To understand this as well as you can, feeling how backward you are in your own down-to-the-ground benches, I have completed the following arrangement for the coarse use of stools, and if I don't make away with you, I'm beyond Caesar out nullist. The older sizers, tyrants regicide is too good for you, become unburrable from age. The compositor of the farce of Destiny, however, makes a thunderdrum mistake by letting off this piano fart effect on his first act, as that is where the Duke comes in. Having been sort of nine-knived and truly removed, this soldier, author, Batman for all his commentourism, is just another of those soft-seized bubbles who never quite got the Sandhurst out of his eyes, so that the champagne he draws for us is as flop as Plankrieg. The twin Freer types are billed to make the reappearance as the new neck and knife knick-knocks on the deserted Champ de Boutier. A most cursory reading into the Persic Uralines history shows us how Phonomogula picked up that proper numen out of a collection of prefixes, though to the permeating connoisseur, the Couscousian offspring of this son of a cock is as Saturn as there's a tub in Tobolsk. Ostiac de la Volgo Marina, but that I deny. The fact of wanting to West Point, I could paint you to that butter. Cheese it, if you had some wash. Mordeville leave, oh me, nonsense. Why, the case is as inessive and impossive as Kism hands. Their interlocutive is provocative, just as every hazy hates to have a haze bane in her nose. Cassius may bethink himself a thought of a cavalier, but Burros has the richly rounded head that goes best with soft, hinking, defensive fightyism. He has the lack of wisdom under every dent in his lofter, while the other follows omni vesi milky indeed my, laughing over the linnets and weeping off the onion. He hisn't the hag og, he listened the log, poohoo. And each night sim Mrs. Mand he winks he had the semigen. It was aptly and encouragedly stated, and it is royally needless for one ex ungue leonum to say by whom, that his seeing's craft was that clarity as were the whole borough of Poutrisburg, to be ever launched over him pitch batch. He could still make out with his ostrich the green mote in Ireland's eye. Let me sell you the full troth of Burrus when he were a younker. Here 'tis, and charming too, in 6x7s, a cleanly line by the gods, a king off duty, and a jaw for ever. And what a cheery ripe outlook could help me deuce versus deuce, if I were to speak my whole mouthful to Aranam about it. You could call me the ormused element in your midst of fame. Ichi up, hitchi up, sings the someone in the psalm. Butriam et mel comed et ut sciat, rebo pare, melum elegeri bonum. This, of course, also explains why we were taught to play in the childhood. Der Hanslich ist ein Bruttobrot, mein Butterbrot, und Koimben ist dein Stinkenkott. Ha, ha, ha. This is in fact to show you is Cassius, the brother Scrotch of pure Tyrone. A hole or two the high things of Fort felt, and any go prigging rooms. Chizach, you complain, and hi, must say you are not holy in the wrong. Thus we cannot escape our likes and mislikes, exiles or ambushiers, beggar and neighbour, and this is where the dime show advertisers advance the temporal relief plea. Let us be tolerant of antipathies. Nex quo vice burro num fit mercasius. I am not hereby giving my final endorsement to the learned ignorance of the Cunesis philosophism, in which old Nicholas pegs it down that the smarter the spin of the top, the sounder the span of the bottom. What the worthy old auberginiste ought to have meant was, the more stolidly immobile in space appears to me the bottom which is presented to use in time by the top, primo mobilisque, etc. And I shall be misunderstood if understood to give an unconditional sine-quam to the herosicide furabouts of the noliness theory, or at any rate of that substrate of apart from his hearer, where the Theophil swores that on principio he was the pointing start of his odios by comparison, and that whiles eggs will fall cheapened all over the world, the bouillure will be dear on the brie. Now, while I am not out now to be taken up as unintentionally recommending the Silkeborg Tyrone dynamo machine for the more economical helixtrolysis of these amboadpates, until I can find space to look into myself a little more closely first, and shall go on with my decisions after having shown to you in good time how both products of our social stomach, the excellent Dr. Burroman, I notice, by the way, from his emended food theory, has been carefully digesting the very wholesome criticism I helped him to in my Princeps edition, which is all so much to the cud, and muteriorly polarize the incompatibility of any delusional acting as ambivalent to the fixation of his pivotism, positing, as above, two male pools, the one the picture of the other, the umber, the scotia of the one, and looking wantingly around our undistributed middle between males we feel we must wastefully want a female to focus, and on this stage there pleasantly appears the cowrie maid M, whom we shall often meet below, who introduces herself upon us at some precise hour, which we shall again agree to call absolute zero, or the babbling pump of Platonism. And so, like the former son of Achish, who went up and out to found his father's ashes, we come down home gently on our own turned-about asses to meet Margarine. We now romp through a period of pure lyricism, of shame-bred music. Technologically, let me say, the appetizing entry of this subject on a full chest of viols is plumply putting the carp before dwarf oars. Evidenced by such words in distress as, I cream for thee, sweet Margarine, and the more hopeful, oh Margarina, still in the bowl is left the lump of gold. Correspondents, by the way, will keep on asking me what is the correct garnish to serve drischins with. Tansy sauce. Enough. The pawn-breaking pathos of the first of these shoddy pieces reveals it as a caseous effort. Burros's bit is often used for a toast. Crini culture can tell us very precisely indeed how and why this particular streak of yellow silver first appeared on, not in, the bowel. That is to say, the human head, bald, black, bronze, brown, brindled, betteraved, or blanche-manged, where it might be usefully compared with an earwig on a full bottom. I am offering this to Signorina Cuticura, and I intend to take it up and bring it under the nosterais of Herr Harleen by way of diverting his attentions. Of course, the unskilled singer continues to pervert our wiser ears by subordinating the space element, that is to sing, the aria, to the time factor, which ought to be killed in tempore. I should advise any unborn singer who may still be among my heeders to forget her temporal diaphragm at home, the best thing that could happen to it, and attack the roulade with a swift colpo diglottid to the lug. Though Mace, I will insist, was reclined from overdoing this, his recovery often being slow. And then, on the third deadbeat, to close her eyes, and I open her oath, and see what spice I may send her. How? Cease thee, Cantatricky, I fain would be solo. Arouse thee, my valour, and save for e'er my troubadour. I shall have a word to say in a few yards about the acoustic and architectural management of a tone hole, but as ours is a vivarius where one plant's brief is a longer planner's bicent, and you may not care for the argon, it will be very convenient for me to emolument, to pursue Burrus and Cassius for a rung or two up their isoscellating biangle. Every admirer has seen my goulash of marsh. She is so like the sister you don't know, and they both dress alike, which I titled The Very Picture of a Needless Woman, which in the present ornates our national cruet stand. This genre of portraiture of changes of mind, in order to be truly terse, should evoke the bush soul of females. So I am leaving it to the experienced victim to complete the general suggestion by the mental addition of a wallopy bound, or should the zoological zealot prefer it, a kangaroo teal. The hat boxes which composed Romba, Lady Trebesond, Marge in her Excelsius, also comprise the climactogram up which B and C may fondly be imagined ascending, and are suggestive of gentlemen's spring modes, these modes carrying us back to the superimposed clay layers of Eocene and Pleistocene formation, and the gradual morphological changes in our body politic which Professor Ibahi Ahuri of Philadelphonius III, whose blue butter boost I have just given his coup de grace to, neatly names about surprises. The boxes, if I may break the subject gently, are worth about 4 pence per box, but I am inventing a more patent process, foolproof and perfect. I should like to ask Sherlock Holmes' person who is out for the removing the roofs of our criminal classics, by what deductio ad dominum he hopes de tacto to detect anything unless he happens of himself movibile tectu to have us laid off, after which they can be reduced to a fragment of their true crust by even the youngest of Margies, if she will take plays to be seated and smile, if I please. Now, there can be no question about it either that I, having done as much, have quite got the size of that demilitary young female, we will continue to call her Marge, whose types may be met with in any public garden, wearing a very dressy affair, known as an ethel of instep length, and with a real fur reduced to 3/9 and muffin cap two-tone. They are angel-skin this fall, ostentatiously hemming apologetically over the shirtness of some sweet garment, when she is not sitting on all of the free benches avidiously reading about it, but evidently on the lookout for him, or so thrilled about the best-dressed dolly pram and beautiful elbow competitions, or at the movies swallowing sobs and blowing Bixed biscuits over Child Chaplin's latest, or on the verge of the gutter with some bobbed hair brief-rock baby mama's toddler. The Smythes now keep 2 domestics and aspire to 3 male ones, a shover, a butt-legger, and a sectary, held hostage at arm's length, teaching his infant majesty how to make waters worse. I am closely watching Master Pules, as I have reasons to suspect from my post that her little man is a secondary school teacher under the boards of education, a voted disciple of Infantulus, who is being utilized thus publicly by the seducente infanta to conceal her own more masculine personality by flaunting frivolous finery over men's inside clothes, for the feminini of that tota mulier will always lack the musculink of a verum virum. My solutions for the proper parturience of mattress and the education of micturious mites must stand over from the moment till I tackle this tickler hussy for occupying my attentions. Margarina. She's very fond of burros, but a lick and a lack she's very fond of tea. The important influence exercised on everything by this Eastasian import has not been till now fully flavoured till we can comfortably taste it in this case. I shall come back for a little more, say, farther on. A Cleopatrician in her own right, she at once complicates the position while Burrus and Cassius are contending for her mystery by implicating herself with an elusive Antonius, a wop, who would appear to hug a personal interest in refined cheese of all shades at the same time as he wags an antomine art of being rude like the boar. This Antonius Burros Cassius group triad may be said to equate the Qualis equivalent with the older so-called Talus on Talus, one just as quantly as in the hyperchemical echomantarchy. The tantum ergons illuminate the quantum urge so that the eggs is to way, as way is to zeed, like your golf child's Abe Boob caddy. And this is why any simple Philadelphus of a fool you like to dress, an athemist-hued, low-townian, X-legged fratricide, may be awfully green to one side of him and fruitfully blue on the other, which will not screen him, however, from appealing to my grope-searching eyes through the strongholds of my acropole, as a boosted, blasted, bleating, blatant, bloating, blasphemous idiot, who cannot tell a bum from a pineapple when he steals one, and will not sing his Solomon with the Kong in our gregational pom-poms with the canting crew. No, topsman to your tarpeia, this thing, Mr. Abbey, is na fond. And taking off suitstuffs and alkali-like matters, I hope we can kill time to reach the salt, because there are some first-class nutric acids bittering in the saltpeter for you to plump your potage in. The thundering legion has stormed Olip, and it end. 12 tabular times till now I have edicted it. Maris genius Tacarius Cassius, morator te salutat. My famous race is run, so let democracy take the hindmost. Abraham Trippier, those old diligences are quite out of date. Read next answer. I'll beat you so long. Big-tempered, why not take direct action? See previous the reply. My unchanging word is sacred. The word is my wife, to expounce and expound, to vend and to venerate, and may the curlews crown our nuptials, till breath us depart, women. Beware, would you change with my years? Be as young as your grandmother, the ringman in the wrong shop, but the right words by the rote order. Ubi lingua nunc passit ibi fas, adversus hostum semper sac. She that will not feel my full moon, let her peal to thee, as the hoyden and the impudent. That man that hath no Moses in his soul, nor is it not awed by conquests of words' law, who never with himself was fed, and leaves his soil to lave his head. When his hopes in his high lows from his whisking his woe, if he came to my preach, a proud purse-broken ranger, when the heavens were wailing the spite of their spout, to beg for a bite in our bark, noise danger, would meself and Mac Jeffet four in hand foot him out? Aye, were he my own breast brother, my doubled with love, and my single biased hate. Were we bred by the same fire and signed with the same salt, had we tapped from the same master and robbed the same till, were we tucked in one bed and bit by the one flea, homo gallant, hemi, capanoise, bum and dingo, jack by churl, though it broke my heart to pray it, still I'd fear, I'd hate to say it. 12. Sacer esto? Answer. Simus, sumus.